So let's talk about who's winning the championship. We're more than halfway into the season. The trade deadline passed. So that means that whatever roster you're seeing right now is final. The only players who changed were resumed in my video yesterday. Well, all compiled into my video yesterday. And the one player who I did not talk about was Killian Hayes, but he got waived by the Pistons. So those are really the big roster changes which happened in the NBA. So that means that whatever lineup you're seeing right now in the league is final. And it's not going to change unless they waive players or unless they participate in buyouts. But even with a buyout, I don't think they could sign a player until the offseason or until after they've been eliminated from the playoffs, from the play-in, etc. So what we're going to speak on right now is what are the teams that are looking good, what are the teams that are looking bad, what do the standings look like, and what do they tell us? And basically, if we could resume the season into like a few key points right now, what would we do and how would we do it? Firstly, I want to say this season has been extremely interesting. This season, we've had a lot of ups, a lot of downs, and we've had many cases where we just have a lot of players, coaches, teams, and in general, people talk about the season and talk about their goals, and most of them are pretty good. We've had some teams which have overexceeded expectations, like the Timberwolves, which are now, the 1 seed, and or they're tied for the 1 seed. They've done great with their Anthony Edwards led group and Karl Anthony Towns. Rudy Gobert has been playing like the defensive player of the year, and they've had a lot of things to them which have made them great. You have teams which have underperformed based on their expectations, like teams from the East, like the Cleveland Cavaliers at the start of the season looked terrible, but then they started picking it up after, and it became great. So we've had a pretty good amount of rocky teams, of teams where it's like, what are they going to do? What do they look like for the future? What does their next chapter entail? And what is the future in this what is the future of their season in the 2023-2024 season? First, I want to say that the 76ers are doomed for a few months. I don't think they're dropping from the playoff picture. I definitely don't think so. But I do think that there is a big problem with these because they have become very, very, very understaffed, especially with the trades that they've made. They traded away a lot of their role players. They traded away a lot of the people who made them and who have them at the top, and I believe that some of the best role players, even like Marcus Morris, they traded them away, even if I like the trade in which they traded him away. They've lost 3 straight, making the games close considering the teams that they face. They're consistently facing good teams. But I do believe that when it comes to the 76ers, until Joel Embiid finishes with his meniscus tear and that process comes to an end, I do not believe that they will even be close to the picture. The Celtics look like the champions. They're secretly just running the league. They're about to win 40 games and 12 losses, which would put them at a 65 game pace for the season, which is phenomenal. The Cavaliers have really taken advantage of the fact that other teams have been struggling. I do not think that their 2 seed is secured, but they've won their last 8. They have faced some easy teams, which is something that I do want to say. Like, they've faced the Grizzlies, the Wizards, the Nets, right? Like the Pistons, the Spurs. It's like it's not like they're facing the best teams, but they've definitely taken advantage at the right time to win against the bad teams, and then also the good teams which are struggling are really having it in a bad manner. Finally, a team like the Bucks in the East, I'm only going to be talking about the teams which I find interesting in every conference. So I'm going to be talking about the top three in each and some of the teams. Finally, for the top three of the East, the Bucks, they look bad. I don't think they're going to win anything this season because with the way that they're playing right now, they look like they haven't figured it out yet. So when we speak on these factors, right, for the East, we have to talk about the most important two, which are the Knicks and the Heat. First, the Heat are a seventh seed right now. They've been playing pretty well this season. They just have some tough losses and some losses that make your head scratch. I am a Heat fan, and I think that we've been playing well. I think Terry Rozier was a good add, but I just think that our biggest problem is that even though we beat a lot of bad teams, and there are some nights where we go really well against good teams, the problem is that we don't abuse matchups as much as we should. Like, I'm sorry, but there are some teams that can physically not guard us, and there are some teams that cannot guard our shooting or whatever. And I think that, that we need to do a better job of abusing the tools that we have because we really have every type of player, right? So that's the biggest problem with the Heat. And with the Knicks, now that they finally finished their offseason, they have Bojan Bogdanovic, they have all these guys, they've changed their lineup, and they have Jalen Brunson. I do think that now is the time where the Knicks can actually push to make a deep playoff run. I do not think they will be champions because, if we're being honest, in the NBA, a team making a few trades, getting a star some run, and doing what they do is not good enough to win a title, if we're being honest. For the West, we have the Timberwolves. They look pretty good, but I do think that Anthony Edwards and that group needs more time to really merge together. They have a lot of mistakes. Like, sometimes their coordination is off, and sometimes they look slower on ball, even though they're on a fast break. And some other times it just seems like their teammates aren't being consistent enough. For the Nuggets, they look like the Nuggets. I'm not going to speak on them. They just look like this season have suffered more with injury and with battles, but when they're fully healthy, it's going to be very hard to stop them, as we saw yesterday against the Lakers. And with the Thunder, they traded for Gordon Hayward. Now you have the team that you had plus a great vet, and it didn't really hurt you. So I think that the Thunder are good, and I do think that those three teams are good, but the only team that has an actual chance of winning a championship there is the Nuggets. The Thunder are way too young, and they do not have the roster to actually do that. Then when we go to some other teams, we have the Suns, the Pelicans, the Clippers, which are the next three in the top six. The Suns are good, and I do believe that they have the biggest chance of making a deep run because of Kevin Durant and the way that he's been playing this season. The only thing that you have to hope for them is that their health is in good, is well. They obviously have a lot of health problems, especially with Bradley Beal, and that being a concern is really tough, especially for an organization that is pushing for a championship with a player who's aging, who's so close to aging like Kevin Durant. For the Pelicans, I don't think they're going to do anything this season. I love the Pelicans, but they just do not have the it factor that I believe the teams need. Zion is great. He definitely is very clutch. I will say that he can close games, but he's just not enough to win you a championship at this moment in his career. Finally, with the top six, we have the Clippers. Yes, I'm sorry, the Clippers. The Clippers could actually win the championship, and they're one of the teams that I think it's foolproof to actually win and actually make a deep run. Apart from there, most of the good teams or teams which we expect to be good are pretty trash, like the Mavericks, Lakers, and Warriors, and they're not really helping themselves, as most of them are either going to finish outside of the play-in picture, and at least one of them is going to either finish outside of the play-in or finish as a 10th spot and not make the playoffs, which is crazy to say, but at this pace, I don't think that they're going to get much better. Finally, the most interesting team right now, for me, in my opinion, is the Kings, as they're one of the most interesting teams just because their personnel changes and the way that they're playing right now with all of their stars healthy has been really confusing considering the fact that they lost to the Pistons by 13 points and like what is happening with the Kings. Finally, I did want to say that all of these things and all of these teams do have a chance, but I think that in a 7 game series and in an NBA Finals series, if I would have to take a pick right now for who I think is going to win the championship, I would probably have to say the Celtics. As much as I don't want to say it, they look like the best fit, the best chemistry, and the best team with the best supporting cast. So yeah, I think I'm picking the C's as it stands right now.